Ontario Premier Doug Ford has just taken steps that will escalate tensions with President-elect Donald Trump, threatening to cut off energy exports to the United States if he follows through with his 25% tariff on Canadian goods. But that's only if we don't take measures to stop the flow of drugs and migrants coming across the border. Ford's threat was clear. Ontario will use every tool available, including halting power shipments, if the U.S. moves forward with these tariffs.
Well, let's see what happens as we move forward. But we'll use every tool in our toolbox, including cutting them off energy that we're sending down there. Folks, this is coming. It's not if it is, it's coming. And it's coming January 20th or 21st.
Well, that's okay if he does that. That's fine. But the United States is subsidizing Canada. It's truly a subsidy. And we shouldn't have to do that.
Trump responded to your energy threat yesterday saying, that's fine, go ahead and do it. What is your response to President-elect?
Well, what you didn't hear on the tapes after, he says, I really want to make a deal with Canada. That's the first time he's ever said that. And I respect the position he's coming from. I'm sure he respects the position we're coming from.
Instead of addressing the porous border and tackling the rampant drug and human trafficking across it, Ford is wading into troubled waters by counter-threatening Trump. This approach directly contradicts the diplomatic efforts of Quebec Premier François Legault and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who are focused on shielding their provincial economies from Ottawa's misguided policies. Whether it's the war on energy, the push for safer drugs, or the surge in immigration and asylum seekers bypassing standard protocols, with border services losing track of at least 30,000 deportees, many of whom are now missing in Ontario, for instance, Ford's stance risks undermining the broader efforts to stabilize the country's economy. While Premier Smith is busy implementing a wide range of border security measures, from a brand new patrol unit armed with drug-sniffing dogs, cold weather drones, and narcotics analyzers, she calls Ford's counter-threat a terrible idea.
What do you make of Doug Ford's vow to cut off energy to the U.S. in the wake of the 25% tariff threats?
Well, let me be clear from the Alberta perspective. Under no circumstances will Alberta agree to cut off oil and gas exports. We don't support tariffs. I don't support tariffs on Canadian goods, and I don't support tariffs on U.S. goods, because all it does is make life more expensive for everyday Canadians and everyday Americans. So instead, we're taking a diplomatic approach, and we're meeting with our allies in the U.S. We're making the case for Alberta oil and gas to be part of the solution to energy affordability, to energy security, and to, generally speaking, North American defense security as well.
Premier Doug Ford threatened to turn off the taps in retaliation to the President-elect's 25% tariffs. Are similar tariffs also on the board for your government? And do you think your message at the recent Western Governors Association meeting eased some of the trade tensions between Canada and the U.S.?
So, first of all, absolutely not. Under no circumstances are we going to support turning off the taps to our close friend and ally, the United States. We have to be very mindful that doing something that drastic would not just create tension, it would destroy the relationship for a generation. So we sometimes have these skirmishes. Sometimes people get a little hot-headed and maybe say things they don't really mean when they sit back and think it through. But no, we won't be turning off the taps, and we certainly want to avoid tariffs as well. We don't think that tariffs on American goods coming into Canada are good for Canadian consumers. I don't think anybody wants to pay more for their playing cards and their cherries and their ketchup and their Kentucky bourbon, to use the examples that the Prime Minister has raised, but nor do American consumers want to see an extra $1 a gallon added to every tank of gas. And so I think we've got a very strong case to make that we really mutually benefit from this shared partnership. And that's the case that I've been making in the United States when I've met with governors and traced for them their dependence on Canadian energy to have lower prices. I can tell you it's been persuasive. So we're going to keep on persuading one person at a time, and hopefully that will have some impact on persuading the U.S. president to take a different course.
Then Ford shifts blame to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in his comments on women's rights in the U.S., claiming they were not helpful at all.
We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes, march towards progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist.
They aren't helpful at all, and yes, it was brought up I'm not going to say who said what, but it was brought up a couple times in our meeting. It's not helpful at all. Donald Trump was elected democratically. If you like him or you don't like him, that's not our issue. We elect Canadians, and it was not helpful whatsoever. And I'm sure Prime Minister got the message loud and clear.
But his reactive threats are no better. Instead of concrete action to protect the interests of Ontarians and his province from further strain by mass immigration without adequate infrastructure to support it, it seems he's just trying to puff up his chest in front of Trump.
Does it undermine Canada's position to have these disagreements on full public display? And why did you float that idea without talking to the others first to make sure you were speaking for the team?
Well, let's clarify what you just said. It was very clear that all premiers believe we should hit our 2% when it comes to NATO. So we're all in agreement. We're all in agreement, every one of us are in agreement that we have to tighten up the borders. Where we differ, I was speaking very clearly for Ontario, and I still speak for Ontario. I don't speak for the rest of the country. That's up to the premiers.
You know that it's bad when this progressive conservatism, i.e. liberal light, is just touting every which way, when even irrelevant Green Party leader Elizabeth May supports the move.
But I am really absolutely, as leader of the Green Party of Canada, in support of us pulling together as a country, a Keep Canada, Team Canada. I didn't think I'd ever find myself thinking, you go, Doug. But when I see Doug Ford say, okay, so maybe we'll hold our energy. It's best that we stick together. It's best that we not freelance.
With Premier Doug Ford's approval rating languishing at an abysmal 34%, one has to wonder whether his actions truly reflect the interests of the province he's meant to serve, or if his ego has become as inflated as his political missteps, and perhaps he's had a little bit too much cherry cheesecake. For Rebel News, I'm Tamara Ugolini.
Today, we're going to make the famous Premier's cheesecake.
If I wasn't Premier, I'd open up a cheesecake factory.
If you want to see bureaucratic reform in Canada under new leadership, then head on over to /thebureaucracy.com and sign our petition. There you can support our work and sign up so that you never miss a report. That's /thebureaucracy.com.